and welcome to the third episode of the Bruin Bible. I am so lucky to be joined by UCLA beat writer for the LA Times, Ben Bolch. Ben is actually out in Tokyo for the next couple weeks covering the Olympics. Ben, it only took you 9.5 hours to get out to Tokyo. Is that correct?
Well, 9.5 hours from the airport to my hotel. The flight, which actually pretty much matched the flight time of about 9.5 hours. So you combine that with, I actually flew out of SFO. I had a connection out of LA. From the time I left my door in LA to getting to the hotel, I'm sure it was over 24 hours. So still catching up on sleep, but don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, man. Is this your first Olympics covering it, Team USA, or have you done things like this in the past?
No, my very first, and I'm in my 21st year at the Los Angeles Times, so something I've been waiting for a long time, to be honest, and just happy to be here, as they say, and do whatever I can to help our coverage.
Well, Ben, I wish you nothing but fun out there. Cheer for our guys. Drew Holiday out there. We got 50 other Bruins competing in Tokyo, so that'll be a lot of fun. We're going to do kind of a preliminary breakdown of the Bruins football team. It's going to be a pivotal year for Chip Kelly coming up in Westwood. 10-21 career record, 0-6 out of conference record career-wise. But they were 3-4 last year. They lost all 4 games by a combined 15 points. So they were in these ball games. They just kind of gave them away at the end, returning 19 of 22 starters. Ben, are you optimistic about the Bruins coming into next season?
Yeah, in a normal year, if you told me, I think they actually have 20 starters coming back. I think the only 2 missing are Dimitri Felton and also Odigizua, unless I'm missing one. I think Jalen Irwin, you could count him or not count him. I'm not counting him. So you could say 19 or 20, but in a normal year, I would say, wow, almost everybody back, lots of experience. There's nowhere to go but a big season. However, I think some context is needed as you look at these rosters across college football. It's pretty common to see a lot of teams returning 18 to 20 starters. So that's going to kind of even out. I think the thing that UCLA really has going for it, though, that a lot of teams don't, is that they have a fourth-year quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson at the most crucial position in college football. So that's going to be a big plus. And then also, they brought back 4 graduate transfers for a second season, and they're going to all be big contributors as well. So, I do think that it sets up nicely, just kind of big picture-wise, with all these guys coming back at key positions and a lot of experience, and really no more excuses for not having a great season at UCLA.
DTR, as you mentioned, coming back for his senior year, looked like he made a jump last year. This is the first year he completed over 60% of his passes. Still had a couple, head-scratching interceptions, but I think it's, realistic to expect this guy to be one of the best quarterbacks, within this Pac-12. Maybe not even more than that, maybe in the country. Where do you see DTR, and what do you think his ceiling is for his senior year?
Yeah, I expect him to, challenge for Pac-12 Player of the Year, and if UCLA has the season it wants, he could, even be a kind of a dark horse Heisman guy. That obviously would be a best case scenario, but why not? There's, as we've already alluded to, there's returning guys at every spot. UCLA really knows Chip Kelly's system now, and Dorian should be able to fully kind of capitalize on what Chip wants out of him. And I think, as you alluded to, he's got the big things for him, as far as I'm concerned, are turnovers and just making the play that will survive and get to the next down instead of turning the ball over. I think he had 4 turnovers in that Colorado game last year, and they were playing catch up the rest of the way. So he can't do something like that and expect them to win games. He's just got to play within himself, because let's face it, he's got all the talent in the world, and now he just kind of has to showcase it week to week, consistency wise.
And I want to give you a prediction, because I asked Mike Regalado, who writes for Bruin Report last time. Do you think it's conceivable 3,800 yards and 30 touchdowns through the air? And I picked this for a very specific reason. That was Brett Hundley's best year passing as a Bruin, which was 2012. Do you think he can surpass those numbers come 2021?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to put a ceiling on anything that Dorian can do. I think that he can establish all sorts of records. I haven't looked closely at I think he's sixth on the career passing list, I want to say. I'm not sure what he needs to get to like number one or number two, but I think as we've alluded to, I mean, just a monster ceiling could be kind of here on the horizon for him, and he really wants to. But as he said, and to his credit, it's not about him. It's about making this team much better than it's been his first 3 years. Last year, obviously, they were on the cusp of having a good season. But I think he really wants to go out with, as he used the word, he wants to go out with a bang and have a season where they're at the very least in contention for the Pac-12 South, if not the winning the whole conference.
I want to go to the receiver room now. Kyle Phillips coming back. He's been the lead pass catcher for the past 2 years. He looks great out of the slot. He's a great returner as well. Chase Cota, a guy who came in highly coveted. He was a Army All-American. He's only had 100-yard receiving game since he's been a Bruin. It's kind of, make or miss time for Chase. But the guy that I'm really excited about is the tight end Greg Dulcich, and just seeing some of the flashes he was able to do. He looks like he is really in the hunt if he hits what he was doing last year for the Mackey Award at the end of the year, which is the nation's top tight end. The game he played against USC can only be a confidence builder. He had a 69-yard touchdown catch, 10 catches, 167 yards. Doing that against your crosstown rival is pretty impressive. What do you see from the receiver room in Dulcich?
Yeah, I would say the one question mark with UCLA's offense is, can they really find kind of that deep threat that can kind of take the top off the defense and stretch the field? That's been the one area where they've kind of struggled under Chip Kelly. They've obviously had a running game that's been among the best in the Pac-12 every year, and that's Chip Kelly's forte. But they really need, to me, to become the offense they want to be. They really need that deep threat. They really need kind of that guy who can outrun everybody. And I'm still not sure that they have that right now. We thought that Jalen Irwin might be that kind of guy, but he didn't play much last year. I believe he was in COVID protocol and left the team. So they're still searching for that guy. They've got some young guys, Logan Loya, some other guys who haven't really established themselves, who were highly rated before they got to UCLA. And then you mentioned the two guys that we know really well, Chase Cota, Kyle Phillips. Really, looking for even more than they've given so far to kind of establish themselves as stars on a Pac-12 level. And then you mentioned Greg Dulcich, who's been kind of the Cinderella story, who now is just flat out among the best tight ends in the country. He's really added size to go with his speed. He's great hands, great feel for the game. And yeah, I look for him, as you said, to have a season that cements him among the very, very best tight ends in the country. And he's going to be, potentially Dorian Thompson-Robinson's top target game in and game out.
Love it, man. The run game, like you said, it's been top 20 the past couple of years. It's got a chance to go to a higher level. The top 7 offensive linemen returning, highlighted by those bookend tackles, Anderson and Sean Ryan, who for my money could be a first-round pick if he reaches his ceiling this year in Westwood. The 2 running backs, Britton Brown coming back, and then you got Zach Charbonnet, the transfer from Michigan. I know you weren't able to get to spring practice, but what have you heard about Charbonnet for the Michigan transfer?
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to really give UCLA kind of that really sturdy 1-2 punch where, kind of a similar style to Britton Brown, where he's kind of the bigger, sturdier running back, runs hard to bring down, gets yards after contact. So, maybe if they see one of those guys go off the field, that you can't breathe a sigh of relief because you can bring in another guy who can do the exact same thing. And that's going to make UCLA's ground game really, really hard to stop. And one thing I'm interested to see, I know that, as you alluded to, I was not out at spring practice, but There was a report that Casimir Allen, who's kind of the change of pace speed guy, was moved to to receiver, I should say. So that'll be something to watch to see if that was just something they were playing around with, or if he's going to be kind of like a Demetric Felton role, where sometimes he's lined up in the slot, sometimes he's at running back. I would imagine that would probably be the case if I was Chip Kelly. You want to use this guy as many ways as you can to capitalize on that speed. So that's something to watch as we get into fall camp and the season.
We've touched on a lot of offensive players. I want to hear from you, Ben. If you had to pick one player on UCLA's roster to have a breakout season, to make a national name for himself outside of maybe DTR, who is that in your mind?
Well, are we taking Dulcich off the table since we already spoke about him?
We did speak about Dulcich, so maybe not him either.
Okay. It's a great question. You alluded to the tackles. I think that, Sean Ryan and Alec Anderson are both outstanding players who, linemen don't normally get the buzz or the credit they deserve. But I think those guys on both sides are just tremendous and really, will spark whatever this offense is able to do. So I would probably say those guys, and I still keep waiting for Chase Cota to kind of break out as well. He's kind of a solid guy, but it's kind of easy to forget about a little bit. He'll make some catches, but as I alluded to, if he can become like that deep threat they're seeking, or really have more consistency and impact in the offense, then he would be a candidate for that as well. And we talked about running backs. The one guy I'm really excited to see is I don't know if I'm going to speak out of turn here by calling him the cowboy of the team, but Deshaun Merle from Alabama, who's got wears his cowboy hat on campus. He's got his own clothing line now. I don't know.
Great social media follow.
Yeah, if you saw the video, his commitment video was like the best one I've ever seen. Basically showing his day in Alabama, where he's like, lifting hay and just running around in that cowboy hat. And I can't wait to meet him and see what he can do. So he could be, kind of the breakout among the freshmen. It'll be interesting to see how much time he gets. Chip Kelly hasn't normally given freshmen a lot of carries in the running back rotation, but he could be an exception. He's got a lot of talent.
I love it, man. Those are all great predictions. Keep an eye on Charbonnet, too. 11 touchdowns as a true freshman at Michigan. Fell out of favor last year with the OC, Josh Gaddis, the new one they got. But this guy was a highly touted recruit in Southern California, Oaks Christian, and now he's making his way back to Los Angeles for some big-time, hopefully, yards this year. Let's move on to the defense. Jerry Azzinaro got re-signed. His first 3 years in Westwood were very tumultuous, to say the least. He ranked over 100 in each of those years in total defense, which, for fans who don't understand, there's 130 total teams in Division I football. So if you're in the hundreds, it's just not good all around. He did make a jump. He was 73rd in total defense last year. Ben, were you in favor of them bringing back Jerry? What is kind of your opinion on that matter?
Well, it's been no secret that I've been a big critic of their defense under Jerry Azzinaro. Last year, I think that Chip Kelly realized that they needed to make some changes, and he brought in Brian Norwood from Navy, the defensive backs coach, but not just a position coach. They basically switched to the defense that Navy was running, with Norwood as their co-defensive coordinator. Now, Chip and Brian are very careful to not say that Brian has become kind of the de facto defensive coordinator. They say that it's kind of a group process, orchestrated defense that a lot of people contribute to. But I don't think there's any getting over the fact that Brian Norwood has a tremendous influence on what's happening with this defense. And in many ways, you could say that his imprint's all over it. And he is kind of the mastermind, at least to a large degree, of what they are doing defensively. So, it'll be interesting to see. I know Jerry Azzinaro is kind of getting into that range of being close to retirement. And, even if they do have a good season and turn it around, I'm interested to know how many more years he plans on coaching, because I know that Brian Norwood has aspirations to not only be a coordinator, but a Division I head coach. So it'll be interesting to me to see if he kind of takes over that position on the way to becoming a head coach.
So they lose Osa Odigizua, but they have a lot of starters returning from there as well. Kind of give me your thoughts on the defense. The secondary still had their struggles last year, but this is a team that led the Pac-12 in sacks last year. They led the Pac-12 in opposing yards per carry, going against the running game. There were improvements. What did you see from this defensive unit for the Bruins?
Yeah, I would say through the first 5 games of last year, it was a pretty unquestioned successful turnaround, as we talked about with Brian Norwood bringing the 4-2-5 and what they were able to do as far as kind of mixing and matching fronts and coverages and blitzes. And I think it did cause a lot of chaos. But then we saw in those last 2 games against USC and Stanford kind of a huge drop-off, particularly late in those games when UCLA basically, you felt like they had both games won and the defense just couldn't get the stops they needed, particularly in the secondary. I think that was a huge issue that needs to be addressed this year. So, the defense, I think, is definitely trending in the right direction. The 2 things I think that 2 biggest questions I have going into the season defensively is, who's going to generate the pass rush to kind of make up for the loss of Osa Odigizua, and also, can the secondary really buckle down and make the stops that it needs to stop quarterbacks from routinely just shredding this defense? So that'll be interesting to see. And also, I should also mention the middle of the field has been a huge problem. Middle linebacker and the secondary kind of contribute to lots of open areas that opposing teams have been able to really exploit. So they really need to shore up that area as well.
Yeah, like you said, they need to generate the pass rush they had last year. They're going to get a lot of help with that. Caleb Johnson coming back, led the team in sacks, 5.5, 8.5 tackles for a loss. This guy was all over the field last year. Is it crazy to expect maybe a little bit more? Because he had 5.5 in 7 games. I mean, can we be thinking like 9 or 10 from Caleb Johnson this coming year?
As you mentioned that, one of the guys who really could become a breakout on a national stage, he needs to be in that discussion as well, because he was really tremendous last year, in a shortened season and given the full schedule and a lot more games. And now that he's got the comfort level of being back for a second year with this defense, he really could make a huge leap and become, an all Pac-12, at the very least, caliber player. So I think you're right on there. I'll be interested to see, who kind of takes over that Osa spot. I know they've got some veteran guys, Tyler Manoa, Otito Agbonia on the line. Really need to see them step up. And I want to see Martin Andrus, if he can come back from that just terrible knee injury he suffered before the Oregon State game in warm-ups 2 years ago. We have really not seen him back since. I was, hoping he could come back at the end of last year, just wasn't ready. Being a 300-pound guy with a torn anterior cruciate ligament, it takes a little bit longer to come back from. So hopefully he can come back and make a big impact, and that would be a huge boost.
The wild card I have coming from the pass rush situation is Agude, the community college transfer that they have. I mean, when you're getting more tackles for a loss than games played, he had 8.5 as well tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks from his first year from the community college route. I mean, that is just damn impressive. And doing that in 1 year, he gets another full off season this year with UCLA, similar defense, all the 9. And I really think he could be the guy that could step up for Osa in terms of at least pressuring the quarterback, getting to those plays. I also want to talk about the secondary. A lot of familiar faces back there, Blaylock, Quentin Lake, Quantrez Knight. What do you think about those 3 guys coming back? And do you think they can really kind of become a better unit in arguably probably their final year in Westwood?
Yeah, it's going to be really kind of crucial to what they want to do. I mean, I think Quentin Lake individually had some really good moments last year. We saw him break up a pass at the end of the Arizona State game that basically saved that game for UCLA. They would have lost that game. Jaden Daniels made a pass. It looked like maybe it was going to go for a game-winning play, but Quentin Lake was there. Quantrez Knight brings the juice, as they like to say. He's just kind of a guy with infectious energy and enthusiasm, and a playmaker. We see him with some blitzing and some just big hits. He's a guy that the rest of the defense feeds off of. But as you said, I mean, they just need more kind of cohesiveness and consistency. Blaylock needs to be, more consistent in his coverage. We need to see more out of Obi Ebo, who at times, had some breakdowns last year. So those are some of the guys who really need to kind of come together. They made some good individual plays, but it's the consistency factor and, making plays late in games like that Quentin Lake one I alluded to.
Yeah, Quinn Lake. Another play too was that SC interception he had. I was talking about this with Mike last week. First interception of the game. He's guarding Amon Ross St. Brown, who's a very coveted NFL player, he's a 4th-round pick. Read it perfectly, turned around midair, high pointed the football, brought it in on Slovis, who's an NFL quarterback of his own. And you just see those flashes, and you go, this guy could make, maybe he's not a day one draft prospect, but if he reaches his ceiling. His dad played in the league, former UCLA Bruin as well. This guy has the talent. He's only played over 5 games once in his career. If Quentin Lake can be on the field for the Bruins this year, I think this secondary can really improve themselves. Another point I want to make, Ben, is Quantrez Knight. He's kind of the blitzing safety, as you mentioned. For those who follow the NFL, UCLA uses him kind of similar to how the Seahawks use Jamal Adams. He's blitzing all the time, coming up for the run, great anticipatory skills. The guy can do it all. Blaylock as well, as you were, talking about. This guy has made some plays. He had 2 picks last year. He even had a pick against SC. But just the inconsistencies, he'll get burned on one play, and it kind of, breaks his stride a little bit. I think we touched the defense. It's looking great. I want to talk about some of the other Pac-12 teams. I know you're in Tokyo, Ben. I'll get you out of here in no less than 10 minutes. The main competition, the Pac-12 South, USC, Arizona State, Utah. Keaton Slovis for SC, Jaden Daniels for Arizona State, Kyle Whittingham for Utah always has great rosters out there. Who are you most worried about and why when it comes to UCLA? Maybe, running the table and potentially being the Pac-12 South champions if everything goes right.
Yeah, I think we'll have a good early indication of this team potential because they play LSU in game 2 at the Rose Bowl. I'm a little bit curious as to what LSU is going to have this season. I mean, obviously they're 18 months removed from the national title, but last year was really kind of a lost season where I think they went 5-5 was their final record, and that's, I'm sure that that did not please the fan base in Baton Rouge, but. I think what should know by the end of that game whether UCLA is going to have kind of the huge bounce back season or not. I mean, they could lose the game and still have a really good season, but if they get blown out, I think that would sound some alarm bells. But as far as getting into the Pac-12, the couple of the key things that I think about, UCLA has not won at the Coliseum since 2013, which is a long time, and they really have had trouble winning in there. Even with Josh Rosen wasn't able to do it, and so that's going to be a big hurdle to get over. They have to play at Utah, which is going to be hard. I think they have Arizona State coming to the Rose Bowl, but Jaden Daniels, I believe. Is now 0-2 in the head-to-head against DTR, so he's going to be very eager to win that game. So as you alluded to, I think those are the kind of 3 huge stumbling blocks in the South. And then when you think about UCLA's schedule this year, it is tougher than it could be because they have Washington and Oregon instead of Oregon State and Washington State. So anytime you get that combination, it makes it a lot harder to stack up wins. So if UCLA has finish this season with 8 or more wins, they're going to really deserve to be patted on the back because they do have one of the harder schedules in the conference.
All right, I want to do a separate section now. We do prop bets kind of coming into the season. You said 8 or 9 wins. We'll get it at 8.5. Are they over and under 8.5 wins when all is said and done for 2021, Ben?
Oh wow. I always come in saying that they've got it figured out now and they're going to have a big season. I've fallen into that trap, I think, last 3 years. And so, maybe if I go the other way, they actually will this year. But I just think until I see it, I have to see it to believe it. So I'm going to go with the under on that. Even though I think this could be a 9 or 10 win team, I just have to see it to believe it, to be honest with you, after 3 years of 10-21. But so I'm going to go under on that.
And I already asked you about DTR's passing numbers, if he could eclipse Brett Hundley, so we won't go there. But I will go rushing. Does he get over 700 yards on the ground and 11 touchdowns? Because that also matches Brett Hundley's best year running the ball. He was a phenomenal dual-threat quarterback for UCLA in the early 2010s. Does he get over 700 yards and 11 touchdowns?
I'm going to say no, not because he can't do it. I just think they don't need him to do it. I think with the running game that we alluded to, certainly they will mix in some Dorian runs, and it'll be an element to the offense that's very important, but I don't think they're going to make it something that's a staple of the offense. So I'm going to say he's under that.
Under that one. We'll move to the running back room. Britton Brown coming back, very talented running back. He was averaging over 6 yards a carry last year, coming back for his final campaign. And Charbonnet, the transfer. I'm going to combine their rushing yards. We're going to go over under 1,900 yards, and we'll say 22 touchdowns between the two of them.
Yeah, that's a pretty lofty number there. I keep saying they're capable of, but I just think that's a lot. That's a huge number. So I'm going to go with the under, but I think that I will predict that at least one of those guys will top 1,000 yards. And I expect them both to have very good seasons. I just think that's a huge, huge number to reach. So I'm going to go with the under.
It is big. I do want to clarify that. But playing devil's advocate, that line returning and those linemen we were talking about with Anderson and Sean Ryan on the tackles, as well as, all the interior linemen returning. I mean, there's going to be some big holes coming there for the running game. So we're going to go under on the 1,900, 22 touchdowns. Receiving room, Chase Cota and Kyle Phillips. Cota, as we mentioned earlier, hasn't really met expectations just yet, but he does have another year to play. Let's go 1,400 yards between the two of them and 16 touchdowns. Over under.
If you had thrown Dulcich in there, I would say over, but between those two, I'm going to go under.
Okay, under. Kyle Phillips, man, he's pretty good.
I like him a lot, but I just think that this offense is going to be very run heavy, and I think that they have too many receivers, and they like to spread it out, especially amongst the tight ends. So I think that those guys are not going to be able to pile up huge numbers.
All right, here's the Dulcich one I have for you, because he averaged 20 yards a catch last year, and he got 500-plus receiving yards in 7 games. Does he get 50 catches? Does he get 1,000 yards? Does he have double-digit touchdowns, Ben?
I'm going to go on the optimistic side here and say he does. I think that he's going to have a season that's going to make him one of the all-time greats at UCLA. I think that's my one prediction that I'm going to go out. And not really even on a limb, because we all know he can do it. But I just feel really confident in this guy's ability, his mindset. I mean, I just like everything about Greg Dulcich. So I'm gonna say yes on that one.
And I mention this every time because you just have to throw it in. This guy was a walk-on. Anyone could have had this guy in the Pac-12. Stays at UCLA, tears it up. And I've mentioned this before too. I'm a big 49ers fan. He reminds me of another 85. He reminds me of George Kittle out there because he does a little bit of everything. He's a great blocker, great route runner, doesn't avoid contact, stays in bounds. I mean, that 60-something yard touchdown he had against SC. That's one of the best plays you'll see from a tight end around the country right there. So we're going over with Dulcich. I love it. We're going to move to the defensive side of the ball. We were talking about Caleb Johnson earlier. 8.5 sacks. He had 5.5 last year in 7 games. Does Caleb Johnson get 8.5 sacks for the Bruins?
Yes, I think that he could be a 10-sack guy. He really could be one of these national guys. I like his aggressiveness, his instinctiveness, just his attacking mentality is really, really impressive. He used to be a bouncer at a bar, so he knows how to deal with people. He's got to move out of the way. So I'm gonna go with the over.
Man, I love it. I didn't even know about the bouncer part. That's incredible. And then let's move to the secondary. Quentin Lake, He's kind of the guy I'm anticipating to lead that secondary. Quantrez Knight might be the vocal leader. Quinn Lake, I feel like, has the most talent out there. Does he get over under 3 interceptions if he is healthy this year?
Oh, over, way over. I think he could be like a 6 or a 7.
Oh,
A 6 or a 7 interception guy. I think he's going to have a huge season. I mean, he's got the lineage. He's got the talent. So I think that he's poised for a huge season.
man, kind of could have a Raheem Moore 2009 year where he went double digits at 10, I believe, 9 or 10. Unbelievable stuff from Raheem Moore. Well, Ben, that's all I got for you, man. I wish you nothing but fun out in Tokyo. I can't tell you how jealous I am that you're going to the Olympics. One of them on my bucket list for sure. Ben, have an awesome time out there, man. And let's talk again soon.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.